Hi everyone, Dr. Krisha here. Today's a super exciting webinar all about sleep. So it's Rest 101. We're getting straight down into sleep facts. How important is it really? What are the stages of sleep and how many are there? And then where the gold is maximizing the quality of your sleep. So let's just get right to it. So the lowdown on sleep. We're going to start with some facts. So first, humans spend about 1/3 of our lives sleeping, which rises like 8 hours. 8 hours a night. Sleep is a universal need. All animals need it, all higher beings. Average US nightly sleep is 6.9 hours. So in the US, we don't value sleep as much as maybe we ought to. And 20% of adults actually sleep less than 6.5 hours. And over the last century, that's a decrease by 20%. So we're actually, as we continue on, right, we have a tendency, our society, to sleep less and less. And I think that's probably also correlated with the fact that our society really values, or in my opinion, overvalues productivity and associates more doing with more success, which isn't necessarily the case. And personally, I find that actually sleeping increases my productivity, but I'll get more onto that in a little bit. As you probably know, sleep needs actually vary by age. So right, as a newborn, up to 1 year old, up to 1 year old, we need a whole bunch of sleep. Most of our needs are sleeping, so 16 to 18 hours. And then as we get older, like toddlers, about 10 to 12 hours. And then 10-year-olds is 10 hours or less. And then as we get older, 7 to 9 hours is kind of that average need. And then how important is sleep really? So that is my pup, Miss Delilah Yum Yum. Her 11th birthday is tomorrow. I'm super excited about that. Side note is that for her birthday for the past 2 years now, I put on a happy birthday hat on her, and she actually will keep it on the whole day because she knows that it means getting more praise and more treats. So it's kind of a funny thing. I actually post on my Instagram some photos of her with that on because it's just too freaking adorable. Anyways, how important is sleep really? I have Miss Delilah on there because she actually is like literally like one of the best sleepers that I know. She's always kind of like sleeping and can sleep so deeply. So some tips from, like, why is she doing that so much, or why are we need to sleep so much? And the reason is it helps to restore healthy function. So repair and regrowth in particular, it helps to maintain a healthy immune function. It builds bones and muscle, and it promotes memory consolidation, creativity, and learning. Those are associated with the different stages of sleep, which I'm gonna get into in a little bit. In order to really appreciate the benefits of sleep, I think it's important to highlight the effects of sleep deprivation. So what we see in the studies and the statistics is that when folks are sleep deprived, there is an increased risk of cardiovascular incidents such as stroke, hypertension, and heart attack. And there's an increased risk of depression. There's higher rates of obesity and even death. And part of that is associated with car accidents, right? Driving when you're sleep deprived and then falling asleep on the wheel and then getting into a car accident and maybe even then coming to death because of that. Quite unfortunate. Sleep is so important. So let's get to the stages of sleep. So on here, you can actually see that there are, this is when you're awake, there are then 4 stages of sleep right here. Those all grouped together are considered non-REM sleep, or non-rapid eye movement sleep. And so then we have this other category, which is rapid eye movement sleep, REM, which is where you're actually getting the dreaming state. So first, what I want to talk about is starting at stage 1. So at stage 1, this is when you're drowsy, your heart rate and your muscle tone hasn't changed too much, but you are starting to get a little bit more of that brain activity that is associated with sleep. And then the next stage, stage 2 right here, you actually start to get the sleep spindles activated. That's within your brain. And what they do is that's associated with light sleep. And this is when your heart rate starts to go down, your body temperature, your core body temperature will actually decrease as well. And this actually, side note with that is your body temperature is going down is actually really important for your sleep because of this very factor. So if your body temperature is a little too high, it can actually make it really challenging for you to get into the lighter sleep stages. And then we go into stage 3, which is where you're actually in the deeper sleep. Stage 3 and 4 are both deep sleep. This is where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, meaning the most quality sleep. It's the most beneficial for your health. So during this stage, your brain waves actually change. So as you can see here, right, you have it literally progresses, and now at stage 4, you're more at the delta waves. The delta waves are low frequency and high amplitude. During this stage, the deep sleep, this is when it's actually the most challenging for you to wake up from. So you're in a very deep state. It's actually so challenging that for you to wake up that you can actually hear like a jackhammer going on outside, and you'll sleep through that. And then this is, again, the most restorative and most rejuvenating sleep stage. And the reason for that, we're going to get into a little bit more because it's just that important. And then the thing with this, because it's that deep sleep stage, it is actually, if you wake up during this, you will actually wake up more groggy. So if, some folks will say that, they need less hours of sleep because when they sleep longer, they feel like they are more groggy. And part of that is likely because you're actually waking within that deep sleep stage rather than the REM or the rapid eye movement sleep. So the rapid eye movement sleep is probably the next most important for your health. So during that stage, we're dreaming. So that's actually one of a great way to figure out if you're actually getting into it is, are you remembering your dreams? And are you waking up from your dreams? Because then that tells me that you're going into each of these stages appropriately in the correct order, right? So we go stage 1, 2, 3, 4, REM sleep, and then you go back again. And so when you're in the REM stage, again, you're dreaming, you're doing the memory consolidation, so it's helping to improve, right, your memory. It's also helping with your learning and creativity. And then this state actually will happen approximately 90 or so minutes after falling asleep. And it gets longer throughout throughout the night. So the longer you sleep, the more REM sleep you're going to get progressively. So meaning the first time you go into the REM stage, you might be getting like 10 or so minutes within there. And then by the time that you wake up, you can have upwards of 60 minutes within the REM state. Side note on the deep sleep stages. So each of these stages is correlated with like a rough percentage of how long we want you to be in that. So the deep sleep stage, we want approximately like 15 to 25% of the time of your total sleep duration within that, which is equivalent to about an hour, hour and a half total. And then the REM sleep stage is upwards at about 20 to 25%. So roughly equivalent of where it's like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours within that stage. Okay, so those are the actual stages of sleep, and now let's get into the benefits of deep sleep. So why more deep sleep? So you want more deep sleep compared to the light sleep because during deep sleep, during that time when your delta waves are really activated, you have growth hormone secretion. So what the heck is growth hormone? So growth hormone is what helps it's the hormone that is associated with growth. So, right, kiddos have a whole bunch of growth hormone. And as we age, we have less of that, and our deep sleep will help to release more of the growth hormone, and that's important because of 3 things. So 1, it's going to increase repair and regrowth in all of your tissues. So that's pretty darn important. The next thing that it's going to do is it's going to build the muscle and the bone. So it's going to help rebuild. So that's really great for like athletes, if you're strength training, things like that, because it's actually going to help for that recovery time. The next thing is that it helps to strengthen your immune system. So that is one of the factors of one of the benefits of growth hormone. Super important all the time, but especially during this particular viral time. And then what's super amazing about deep sleep is that the glymphatic system is activated. So what the heck is a glymphatic system? So the glymphatic system was actually discovered in 2012, so rather recently actually. And the glymphatics is essentially the brain's way of cleaning house. So we have the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is throughout all of our body. It doesn't have its own pump, so same thing like with the brain doesn't have its own pump. And so in the lymphatic system, it's actually your way of like cleaning the rest of your cells. And we utilize our muscles and our vascular system in order to pump through that. Well, in the brain, the glymphatic system gets activated in the deep sleep. So that's really important for your overall brain health, right? Because this is a way that your brain actively takes out the trash. If you're not taking out the trash within your brain, then you can have brain diseases later on in life. And that's actually what we do see a correlation in, is that there's individuals who with like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease have been correlated with less deep sleep. So essentially then more deep sleep can help to offset some of those risk factors, though again, everyone has, like there can be genetic predispositions to that as well, but deep sleep can offer some benefits because you're helping to clear out the brain, and in particular the tau proteins, which are associated with Alzheimer's disease. And then you get cardiovascular benefits. So this one's really interesting because what we notice is that with more deep sleep, that you'll have more the slow wave or those delta waves, and that has been correlated with a decrease in hypertension. So getting high quality sleep is really important for individuals who are at higher cardiovascular risk, because your deep sleep is going to help give you some of that protection. All right, so here's like really the bulk of the webinar today, and really the fun stuff, because we understand that sleep is so freaking important. So how can we maximize the actual quality of your sleep, our sleep? So first, in order to understand how to improve it, we want to understand what are the measurements we're looking at. So good sleep anatomy includes efficiency. So efficiency is the time to fall asleep, and are you staying asleep? So this is one of the big questions I ask patients, because if you're taking too long to fall asleep, then that tells me, one, that is a criteria for insomnia. Same thing as waking up multiple times. So the goal is under 20 minutes without long or multiple waking. So if you wake up once to, you have to go to the bathroom or something like that, but then you're able to fall right back asleep, that's fine. If you're having the challenge of going back to sleep, or you're waking multiple times, then what that's doing is interfering with your sleep stages, which then can mean you're not getting as many cycles in, and not getting as much deep sleep, meaning you're probably likely more in the light sleep stages, which just isn't as beneficial for your overall health. The other thing we care about is your duration. So how much sleep are you actually getting? And the interesting thing here is that short duration is actually defined as less than 7 hours per 24-hour period. So if you're getting less than 7 hours a night of sleep, you're actually sleep deprived by definition. And this is one of the things I've been really focusing on, is making sure that I'm getting enough sleep, because it's allowing them to get more of the deep sleep in, as well as the REM sleep, which again, those are the two most important stages when we're talking about sleep. The next thing that I think we don't talk too much about is the timing. So timing is the midpoint of your sleep. So you want the midpoint of your sleep to be between 12 to 3 a.m. And the reason for that is sleep has to do with our circadian rhythm. And there's interestingly, it's difficult to get deep sleep later on in the day, earlier in the let's see, in the daytime. So like if you're taking a nap, you're likely not getting into the deep sleep, and it just has to do with a circadian rhythm. So you get most of your deep sleep actually in the beginning of your sleep, the first couple hours. And so by having your midpoint of your sleep between 12 and 3 a.m., you're allowing your body to get more deep sleep in. And again, the goal is about like 15 to 20, up to 25% of the time of your sleep in deep sleep. All right, so let's get into then sleep hygiene. So this is one of the things that I start with patients, is just talking about like, you know, ways to ensure that you're having proper hygiene. You're not doing things that are going to make it more difficult for you to fall asleep. So one, in the bed, it's only sleep and sex. That's it. If you're watching TV, if you're doing work, any of those things are going to cause a little bit more of a stress response. And then you're also going to then start associating those things with your bed. And then it's not going to promote the sleep, promote you getting tired, right? If for some folks they'd like to read before bed, that's fine, as long as, again, it's not like a stimulating book and you're only doing it for a few minutes. And the biggest thing with that is I don't have a regular light on, because if later, like no, right, we don't want that blue light on, because that will trick our pineal gland, which is we see through our eyes, is that if you get the blue light into your eyes, then that will trick your brain into thinking that it's daytime, and then that's going to decrease your melatonin levels and make you not tired. So if you're reading at bedtime, you just want to make sure that you don't have any blue light on you. I actually just use a red light within my bedrooms during nighttime, so that I can still read a couple pages and then turn that off and go right to bed. You also want the room dark, cool, and quiet. And the reason for that is, light stimulates that pineal gland, will decrease your melatonin levels and then make you not so sleepy. You want it cool, because remember I talked about your body temperature being an important factor in terms of you actually getting into the stages of sleep. And so if it's hot, then it can definitely keep you up. It can make it very challenging to fall asleep. And some of you might even realize that, like as it gets hotter here in Portland, or just with summer in general, that you might be a little bit more uncomfortable, have more challenges falling asleep because of that. So keeping the room cool is really beneficial. And then quiet, because you want to be able to fall asleep rather than have that distraction going on. And then again, the no screen time at least an hour before bed, because really it's that blue light that can trick you into thinking that it's daytime, even though it's absolutely not. And then limit alcohol and late caffeine intake. And so alcohol, no matter what it is, like the amount, does negatively affect our sleep. It can actually make it so that you're not getting into that deep sleep as long, so it'll shorten the duration of your deep sleep. Caffeine later in the day can make you too jacked up to be able to fall asleep. This then goes into play, like nutrition is so incredibly important, which is what we started this whole webinar series about, because again, it lays the foundation for good sleep if you are removing your vices. And then the other thing we're actually going to be talking about in a little bit is exercise, and how that's beneficial. But before that, let's talk hydrotherapy. So hydrotherapy is essentially the use of water to create a beneficial effect on the body. So there was a study done that looked at warm showers and whether or not that benefited sleep. And turns out that taking a warm shower, or my preference is an Epsom salt soak, because it's just a win-win-win-win, all the way around. So a warm shower 1 to 2 hours before bed actually led to a shorter time to fall asleep by at least 10 minutes. So if you are having difficulties falling asleep, trying a hot shower 1 to 2 hours before bed may be beneficial for you. The trick is that it needs to be 1 to 2 hours before bed, because a hot shower, is going to increase your body temperature. And then again, that can then negatively affect your sleep. So you just want to take the timing into consideration. The alternative is that if you do a warm hot shower or that Epsom salt soak, it's actually to follow it up with a cold rinse. And that's called contrast hydrotherapy, alternating the use of hot water or warm water and cold water, or cooler water. And the biggest thing with contrast hydrotherapy is that just that you need a temperature difference. It doesn't have to be like excruciating hot, please don't burn yourself. And it doesn't have to be freezing cold where you absolutely hate me and you never do it again. You just need a temperature difference. The greater the temperature difference, the stronger the effect. And so by ending on a cold rinse, so say you do an Epsom salt soak and then follow that up with a cold rinse and say that's an hour before bed, what you're doing is you're helping to accelerate the decrease of your body core temperature, right? So then it can make it so it doesn't keep you up. All right, so that's hydrotherapy, the use of wonderful water. And contrast hydrotherapy, side note, also has a significant benefits for so many things, including your immune system and your vascular system, because it really strengthens it. Because essentially what happens is the hot water, warm water helps to cause vasodilation. So what that is your blood vessels get wider, they get bigger. And then the cold water will help to cause vasoconstriction, right, which is then smaller blood vessels. And what that literally does throughout your vascular system is it creates a nice pumping action. So it's a great way to kind of clean house. Again, that helps to stimulate the lymphatic system, which is the way that your cells will help to clean out the rest of the stuff that's kind of stuck in there. That's also really useful for swelling. So for folks who have knee swellings or things like that, it can be really helpful to bring that down. Okay. Acupuncture, or in this case, acupressure on Mien. So this point is located, if you can see the photo, but I'll show you also on me. So right here is kind of like the bulk of my muscles right there. And then right here is like the ear, where the ear hole is, I guess. And then it's going to be right in the middle. And that point right there is on Mien, or peaceful sleep. So that is an acupuncture point that I'll often use for folks who struggle with insomnia, because it actually has been shown to increase deep sleep time, and not affecting REM. So meaning it just helps to put you into a deeper sleep. In Chinese medicine, the way that I actually learned this point is that it is the point that you can stimulate at any point of the day, and it is said to help you, as soon as you put your head on the pillow, you'll fall asleep. So if I struggle with sleep at any point, this was actually more so when I was in school because of stress and all of that stuff, is I would massage that point. So one way you can do that, the way that I like to do it is that I get my hands, I interlock them like this, and I have my thumbs out, and then I will put them right in the back and then massage all the way through. So this right here is your mastoid process. And I basically will massage that entire point. So on this picture here, it is this whole kind of area, because the other point that's next to it, over here, is gallbladder 20, which helps to descend the energy down. So also is really beneficial. So you don't have to be specific on where you do the acupressure. Just get all along here and you'll be golden. It's gonna help. It can help. For some folks, it's not enough and you might have to do more. So let's get on to what other things you can do to help improve your sleep. Exercise. So evening exercise in particular increases your rapid eye movement latency. Basically what that means is it makes it happen later on in the during your sleep cycle. So this is important because then it's going to increase your deep sleep time. So you'll have more rounds essentially of deep sleep before you then get into the REM. And right, deep sleep is the name of the game right now. That's what's going to help improve your quality of sleep and help you feel like get more of those health benefits. The trick though is that you can have evening exercise, but if it's vigorous exercise less than an hour before bed, it can actually have negative effects, meaning that it makes it a little bit more challenging for you to fall asleep because of the endorphin production. And so you can just kind of play around with that and see, though, evening exercise does not necessarily mean that you're going to negatively affect your sleep. Some folks, it works really, really well. You just try it out and see if the timing makes a difference for you. And then there's a study below that as well. All right, pink noise. This is a thing that I actually just learned about. So this past weekend, I attended a conference, the annual naturopathic physicians conference actually, and I attended a talk all about sleep and learned about pink noise. So pink noise is different than white noise. So the difference is that both of them contain all audible frequencies to humans, but pink noise actually will change the lower frequencies to have more power. And that's important because it interacts with the body differently than when it's all heard at the same the same intensity. So pink noise actually occurs in all natural systems. It's actually the same kind of frequency as our heart. And it increases time in deep sleep. So I've been playing around with this a little bit more and trying to see, that correlation between am I getting better, higher quality, more time spent in deep sleep, and it has been helpful. It can actually be helpful as soon as the first time you use it. So there are some apps that you can use, the Noisely, Simply Noise. Those ones that I've looked at, what they do essentially is they'll have all of the frequencies, and then you just want to pull down like the white noise and all the other ones and just increase the pink noise. They do have timers associated with it, which I think is helpful to use. You can actually just set it for like 90 minutes or so and then just listen to it throughout then, rather than listen to it throughout the entire night, and you'll still get those benefits of increasing your time in deep sleep. What I actually do is I have an Alexa in my apartment, and I just tell her to play pink noise for me, and she'll just do that, and then it's already on an automatic timer, which I found to be really helpful because just ease. And then if you want a web-based one, there's playnoise.com, also fantastic. All right. I am just blowing through this. So stress management is so incredibly important. So this one right here is really, really important because cortisol and melatonin have inverse relationship with each other. So what that means is that as cortisol levels are higher during the day, your melatonin levels are lower, right? And then your cortisol levels will actually decline throughout time, right, as you are more and more awake. And then what that then means is your melatonin levels, right, they're lower in the morning when you're awake, and then they will slowly increase up until bedtime, and then that's what will help to put you to sleep. So now what can happen, because I just assume everyone's more stressed out now than they were before the pandemic, is that the cortisol levels get all dysregulated. So some folks will have cortisol levels where they're low in the morning, which then means you have difficulties getting out of a bed because of that. And then where your melatonin levels then are going to be all fluctuated as well. And then there's also the issue of like if you have difficulties falling asleep, that partially could be because your cortisol levels are too high. So if you have a relative increase in your cortisol levels throughout the day, then or at bedtime, what that's going to do is then think that to tell your brain, your body, that you're starting to actually wake up, right? And then that's going to bring down your melatonin levels. And so then you're going to have difficulties falling asleep, and it's all because of the stress response. And so we need to then modulate or manage stress a little bit more in order to help bring down those cortisol levels so your melatonin levels can be more regulated, more normal. So this can be really helpful. I actually did a whole webinar talking about stress and in particular with sleep. And so that's available on my website, drkrishaolson.com. And then if you go to the VIP resource library, there's a 30-minute webinar series and you'll find it there. And then what I want to get into is deep belly breathing. So I want to encourage all of you to do this with me because it's so important. Deep belly breathing is beneficial for so many reasons, but let me walk you through it again so that we can be in a more relaxed state. So what you're going to do, what I like to do is have one hand on my chest and one hand on my abdomen, where I'm going to really be focusing on my deep belly breathing. And the reason for that is I really like the feedback because sometimes, especially if you haven't been doing deep belly breathing often, is that you'll have the tendency to really breathe with your upper chest more, and that's just going to keep you a little bit more in that stress response, which we're trying to pull you away from and really want you to utilize your diaphragm. And I'll get more into that in a little bit. So what you'll do, one hand on your chest, one hand on your abdomen, and then what you're going to focus on is really just moving, utilizing your diaphragm, which is this muscle right here. And again, I'll stop talking now and actually do it. And so what I want you to do with me is just really focus on moving this hand and not so much this one. So if you can see, for me, this hand's not really moving too much, and this hand's moving just so much like that. And that's exactly what we want to have. So doing deep belly breathing before bed is really helpful to help you fall asleep, because it's gonna help to put you in a parasympathetic state, really pull you out of that stress response. Again, which is just going to help put you in a more relaxed state in general. So that's gonna be really beneficial. And it also so happens that it's your week challenge. So deep belly breathing for 15 minutes daily or nightly. I have been doing that right before, before bed. And honestly, I fall asleep so quick when I do that, so I'm not even sure if I'm making the 15 minutes, but just focusing on your deep belly breathing is going to help with your sleep, because it's going to pull you out of that stress response. And then if doing that throughout the day can be incredibly beneficial. Previously, right, we had talked about how it's helpful for digestion. So really, deep belly breathing is so wonderful for so many different things, because it helps to bring down your stress response. And then if you learned something new today regarding sleep and like the sleep stages, I would love it if you could, tell a friend, because one of the great best ways to really make sure that we learn something is actually to share it, right? To teach someone, learn one, teach one, right? And send them over to my website, drkrishaolson.com/SOH for Summer of Health, and you'll get all of the replays there. So I actually sent that in the last email that I sent out. I finally got all of the replays all in one spot for you. So that's really awesome, because then you can just binge watch all of them if you wanted to. All right, I really went rather fast. So how do you guys have questions for me? Please ask away. I'm happy to answer them as much as we have questions you have. And then feel free to either type that into the chat or in the Q&A. I got both open right now. One thing that I did want to bring up is that you may be wondering, like, how are you going to find out whether, like, what stages of sleep are you in? And there's a bunch of different services that are available. So they are typically like wearables. So there is one that's a ring, that's the Oura, O-U-R-A, and that can help to track your sleep stages, as well as a bunch of different fitness things. The Fitbit actually will have that as well. There are some beds that also help with your what am I trying to say? There's a bed, like bed mattresses or pads that will also help to track your sleep stages as well. And then the other a question, or more so a statement, is that weighted blankets are absolutely fantastic. So weighted blankets are super great because they do help to put you into a deeper sleep, and then it would help with that REM sleep as well. Absolutely. And then they also can help to speed up the time that you fall asleep. And they've also been shown to help with anxiety. So there's a lot of benefits with that. And there's not, they're not too incredibly expensive nowadays, depending on where you kind of go. But there are some that you can get for pretty cheap, like under $50. And again, they're a great resource. The biggest thing though, that I found right now, because I sleep with a weighted blanket, is that it can make you a little bit more, it can increase your body temperature. So you just have to be careful about that. So, all right, there's another question here is about sleeping or sharing your bed with your dog. And so I've actually been playing around with this. So I have a fancy bed, it's called 8 Sleep, and it will actually track my sleep stages as well. And I played around with, does my sleep stages change by whether or not my dog is in the bed with me? And it didn't. So Miss Delilah sleeps in the bed with me, and there's actually studies that show that it's kind of funny because women tend to sleep better with their animals than men do. So I would say play around with that and see what works for you. I personally, like, me and Delilah, we're cuddle buddies, and so she actually will help me to fall asleep faster too. And then another question about speaking to the wake time of 3 to 4 window. I seem to fall asleep fast and hard, but then wake up for an hour or more around 3 pretty consistently, and then groggy in the morning. So yeah, so I will actually find that a lot of folks will wake up between 3 to 5 a.m. And what I've noticed about this is actually based off of my Chinese medicine training. So the 3 to 5 a.m. window is actually the same time that we have a energy shift within our body. So in Chinese medicine, we have that 3 to 5 a.m. window actually is when our energy shifts from the liver channel to the lung channel. So the liver channel ends right here. So this is the bottom of my ribs, and the lung channel starts right up here by the base, like my collarbone, like right up there. Physically, you can tell that's pretty big distance. Normally, most of the channels will actually end here and start here, not very far away. And the reason that some folks can wake up between 3 to 5 a.m. is actually because there's what we call a liver-lung block. And what that essentially means is that the energy is not flowing between the liver channel and the lung channel very appropriately. I will actually feel that in people's pulses. The way that it feels is that liver energy is more so like a dam. So meaning like there's a dam in between. So right, that liver energy, there's a lot there. And then in the lung channel and that lung energy, there's not that much there in that lung pulse. And so it gets empty. And so because of that uneven flow in your energy, you'll wake up. And this so let me step back in the liver channel, the way that you can fix this. So I can fix this in office with some acupuncture. I just needles in, boop, boop, open up those 2 channels, and then it starts flowing. But maybe you're not coming in for acupuncture, or you're not a fan of acupuncture, or we want physical distancing, all that, whatever reason. You can actually unblock it yourself, and the way you do that is with exercise. So the liver channel is associated with the muscles, the tendons. And so it's literally all about movement. And the benefit of just doing some more vigorous exercise can help to unblock that energy, because the liver channel, the liver energy is all about up and out. It's wood, it's expansive. It's, the energy of spring and summer. It's when things are more explosive. And so if you're not utilizing your liver energy with inactivity, with being more sedentary, because we all kind of are a little bit more sedentary now, is that it then creates that imbalance within the liver energy, and then that liver energy doesn't have an outlet to get out. So literally it's stored up. And then again, just doing some exercise helps to move it so it's a little bit more even flow, and then that can help to keep you asleep. Though there's also other reasons for waking up in the middle of the night. Like it could be correlated with cortisol levels spiking in the middle of the night, and then that's what's preventing you from getting back to sleep. And then waking up groggy in the morning. So that is actually probably because of waking up. So one, what I care about is, are you waking up from a dream? Because if you're not, then you might actually be waking up from a deep sleep state. And then that's going to make you feel really groggy because your brain is right in those deeper wave, the slow wave, the delta waves, which then is just what happens is you wake up really groggy, right? The other thing to pay attention to, or to take into consideration really, is that waking up groggy can also be because of low cortisol levels in the morning. So I will test for a couple different things when I'm trying to help people with their sleep, because there are a couple different reasons for that happening. Another question here, I use a Garmin watch that tracks sleep. That's great. In general, it seems pretty accurate as to when I fall asleep and wake. Consistently shows my deep sleep's very low, less than 30 minutes per night, sometimes only 10 minutes or so. Is there some way I can double check my sleep stages? The REM sleep is usually 25%, so probably okay. Well, so part of that, it depends. So, right, the tips that I gave you earlier are really geared at increasing your deep sleep. So try utilizing those and see if that helps with improving the amount of time that you're spending in the deep sleep. Because the goal is somewhere between, right, the 15 to 25%. And you want to try to maximize the amount of sleep because you're going to feel a lot better. And so I don't know if there's another way to double check the sleep stages other than using some other app, or maybe trying to see if you can get your Garmin watch recalibrated to double check with that. And then the REM sleep, yeah, about 25% is great. But again, with the REM sleep, the biggest thing is that you want to make sure that you're ending on that. Because then you're not going to wake up groggy. And then again, so how can you know if you're waking up from the REM sleep is, are you dreaming? And for males, are you having a morning erection? If you're not having a morning erection, then that's because you're not waking up from you're not waking up from REM. You're probably waking up from one of those other stages where you're not going to have the erection. And so that's also an important consideration because, right, we want to make sure that we're waking up from REM sleep in order to prevent waking up groggy. All right, that's fantastic questions. Any others or clarifications? And then also just as a preview, next week, I'm going to go really heavy into stress management and other aspects of play. So really, I'm going to focus on, right, so today was all about your sleep benefits. So what can you do during night to help to improve your rest? And then next week is all going to be more so about what can you do during the day in order to improve your rest and your recovery, because so important, right? We talked about like how your nutrition is so important and your digestion and movements play into it, and all of those, right, all play into getting better sleep, which is why I ordered it that way. And then now it comes down to like, let's improve your sleep so that you're going to get all those health benefits, which then will help with all the other things that we're going to be talking about later on as well. All right, well, it's always a pleasure doing these webinars for you all, and I so appreciate the questions and the engagement. If there are no other questions for me, then I will let you all go a little bit earlier than usual and get on with the rest of your day. Enjoy the sunshine, get out and move. Thank you to Nicole for, yes, happy birthday to Miss Delilah. I'm so excited for her. She's going to have to just put up with me. She's turning 11, so it's so exciting. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop this. Again, have a great rest of your day.